And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a zombie game that is actually kind of a politics game in disguise. We're going to take a look at City of Horror, which is a game for 3 to 6 players, in which each player is controlling some survivors after the zombie apocalypse. And you're trying your best to make arrangements with other players, either to get resources or vaccines, or whatever the case may be, just not to get yourself killed before the end of the game. So real quick, why don't we take a look at what you get inside of this box and how the game plays, and then we'll come back here and get my final opinions on City of Horror. So here you can see the setup for City of Horror. Now we're set up for a 5-player game. The game plays up to 6. And what we're looking at here is a giant modular map. All of these pieces can be removed and flipped over, and there's actually a whole other variant on the other side where each of these locations has a somewhat different ability. So we're looking at 4 or 5 different locations here. We have a bank, a water tower, I guess there's 6, a church, the armory, the hospital, and then the crossroads over here. And the rest of these areas are just kind of storage locations. This is where you store all your zombies. This is where you store all of the vaccines, and there's various other storage areas on the board. But essentially each player is controlling some survivors. In the 5-player game, you're controlling 3 survivors per player. And although this is a zombie game, it's really going to be more of a politics game, where you're trying to make alliances and keep yourself alive as long as possible by splitting up vaccines, splitting up items, and hopefully not getting yourself killed by the zombies. So, at the beginning of the game, you're going to start out, and everybody's going to be randomly placed on the board by revealing some of their movement cards. Each player is going to have movement cards. These cards look like these little tiny cards here, and they show each of the locations on there: hospital, bank, water tower, crossroads, armory, and I left one over here. But they're all there. You have the church. So each player is going to reveal 3, and they'll be set up on the board. After you get it set up like this, you're going to reveal the first zombie invasion card, and it's going to show you where the zombies spawn. So you can see here we have 3 in locations 5, 1, 2 in location 2, 2 in location 4, and 1 in location 3. And you can see that I've represented that out on the board. Location 3 has 1, and all of the other areas have the amount that I indicated. After you've all set up, you're going to go ahead and start the game. And the game is played over a series of phases. You'll see that each turn of the game has 6 phases. They're all outlined here, and I'm going to cover them very quickly. The first phase of the game is the water tower phase, and any character that's present on this 3-dimensional water tower here has the option of looking at the next zombie invasion card. And there are 4 hours of the night, so there are going to be 4 rounds in this game where more and more zombies show up, different items show up, and each player is trying to survive and get a vaccine for each of their surviving characters so that they can score that character at the end of the game. So, the player who is on the water tower, or the players who are on the water tower, have an advantage. They can see what's coming up and try and plan for it in advance. So they'd look at this card and they'd say, okay, green's going to know that zombies are going to show up at 5, 1, and 2. There's going to be some vaccines available at 2, which you're going to need in order to score your characters at the end. Some action cards will be available at 4, and 3 is going to have some more zombies, while 6 will only get 1 more zombie. So maybe they decide to stay where they're at, hoping that it's going to be safe, or maybe they decide to try and move to try and get some of those items. Either way. After that, you move on to the next phase. In the next phase, each player is going to select a movement card from their movement stack. So each player will have their own stack, and they're going to choose one of these cards to choose where they'd like to move one of their characters. So you see green has 1 on the water tower, they have 1 in the bank, and they have 1 over in the church. So they're going to be trying to move somewhere else, or maybe they're going to choose somewhere they're already at. It doesn't really matter, but based on what they've seen from where they are on the water tower, they're going to choose one of these locations. Let's just say they chose to go to the bank. So they'd play the bank, and they want to move somebody else to the bank. Each other player will simultaneously choose one of their cards, and once everyone is chosen, you're all going to reveal them. Now you don't move at this point, but now you know where everybody's trying to go. The third phase is that we're going to go ahead and we're going to resolve the next one of these zombie cards. So at this point, this zombie card would flip out, and we'd see here that 1 more zombie is going to show up on area 1, 2 more zombies will show up on area 2, but we're also going to have 2 vaccines there, which will be split amongst players that are there once we get to that phase of the game. We're going to have 2 more zombies in area 3. We will have a vaccine and a card in area 4. So area 4 here is the hospital. There's going to be a vaccine and a card available. And area 5 here is going to get 2 more zombies, as well as the crossroads getting 2 more. So area 5 gets 2 more, and the crossroads get 1 more zombies. After this point, we're going to move on to the movement phase, and then this is where everyone will resolve their movement cards. And you're going to start with the start player, in this case, who is green, and we're going to go around clockwise. And we're just going to go around clockwise as is shown on this chart here. Maybe hard to see, but green, blue, purple, red, yellow. Orange, not in the game, is covered up by a gray piece. So green first chose to go to the bank. They can move any one of their people to the bank. They already have one there, so maybe they decide to move somebody from the church over to the bank. Now, they probably wouldn't do that because there's things available in the church, so maybe they don't like being up on the water tower anymore. They decide to move into the bank. Okay, now all of the spots in the bank are now full. You'll see there's only 3 available spots, shown by these white squares, in the bank. No one else can be there, so if anyone tries to move there, they're going to have to fail. Next, we go on and we look at blue, and blue has decided they're going to move to the armory. So they already have one in the armory, and there's nobody else in the armory, or there's no more spots in the armory to move to. Now, they have to move somebody. So they can say, okay, I'm going to move the person from the hospital into the armory, but if they do so, they're going to fail, and they're going to end up in the crossroads. However, blue could try and move the person that's in the crossroads to the armory, and they would fail and just move right back. So that's probably the safer move to only have one person in the crossroads. After that, we go to purple, and purple wants to move to the water tower. They can move any of their 3 people, so maybe they move the one at the crossroads into the water tower to try and be a little bit safer. We go to red, who wants to move to the hospital. The hospital's full up, so they're either going to have to try and move the person from the crossroads to the hospital, staying there, or move someone else into the crossroads. And finally, we move to yellow, who has decided they want to be in the crossroads to maybe try and help fight off people or be a little bit safer from the zombies because there's only a few zombies in the crossroads. So maybe they move from the hospital to the crossroads. And that's our movement phase. So you'll see if you're not careful, you can end up in the crossroads, which is probably the most dangerous area of the board at times. Part 5 is the resolving of each of these areas, and starting with Area 1, which is the water tower, you go through several steps in each of these areas. The first step in each area is that you're going to be able to activate the ability of the area. So you'll see here that each area has its own ability. For example, the water tower, as I said earlier, lets you look at the top card of the zombie invasion deck, seeing where the zombies are going to come, but also where the resources that you need to collect in the game are going to come. The next area here, the church, has the ability of allowing you to discard one of your action cards. We haven't covered these yet, but we will shortly. Everybody starts the game with some action cards, and you can discard one action card to refresh one of your characters. Each character also has an ability, much like an action, that you can use by exhausting the character to their other side, making them worth fewer points at the end of the game. So once they're exhausted, they no longer have their ability, and if you want to refresh them, you would have to discard a card to flip them back over. The next area here, which is the armory, allows you to discard cards to get new cards. So if you have cards in your hand that you don't think are useful, you may discard them and draw a new card. And you can use that ability once as long as you're at that area. The hospital here allows you to discard a card in order to gain a vaccine. And as I said, vaccines are worth points, but you're also going to need at least one vaccine per character you want to score at the end of the game. Now, your characters may die, and having extra vaccines will be worth points, but if you want to score them at all, you have to have a vaccine for them at the end of the 4th turn. So you'll need to get your hands on some of those. And then the bank has the option of allowing you to discard a card to change whoever is the target of the zombie for this central area here at the crossroads. And we'll cover that shortly. The crossroads, the last area with an action, allows you to discard one of your action cards in order to pick up one of these canned food items. And these canned food items have a range of points on them. I think they range from 0 to 2 or 0 to 3, and those count for you at the end of the game. So food is a resource for victory points. Anyhow, the first thing you do in each of these areas is you activate the ability if you're present and you want to. So purple could choose to look at this card, whereas the next area, green and yellow, could choose to discard a card to refresh one of their characters. After you've done that, you're going to go ahead and check and see if the zombies are going to attack. When you do this, you're going to look at the condition that's present on each of these areas. So, for example, at the church, there's an attack if there's 3 or more zombies. Now, at this point, there are 4 zombies, so there would be an attack. But before that happens, each player, there or anywhere else, has the option of playing cards. So you can see here, there are cards that, for example, kill 1 zombie. Now, you don't have to be present at this location to kill a zombie. So purple, even though they're not there, they could act from the hospital to kill one of these zombies over here. And it would go back to its staging area. This would not stop the attack from happening because there's still 3 zombies here. So maybe green also wanted to play a card, and they eliminate a zombie. And now there's less than 3 zombies, and the attack wouldn't happen. After you've gone ahead and resolved the attack of the area, you're going to go on to splitting any loot that happens to be there. So, you're going to go ahead and say, well, there's 2 of these here. I want to decide how to split these. There's only 2 characters there, so each character gets 1 vote, or each person gets 1 vote per character they have there. So green has 1, and yellow has 1. And they would vote, but maybe they decide to negotiate beforehand. Maybe green says, okay, listen, if you let me decide how they're distributed, I will go ahead and save your character over at the church, because they're likely to get killed, so I'll go ahead and kill off some of these zombies. Or maybe they make some other side deal where they say, okay, if you let me vote, I'll be sure to give you one of them. I'll give you one of the 2 vaccines instead of giving it to somebody else who's not even present. Because if you do win the vote, you can go ahead and give the vaccines to whomever you want. But each player can only get 1 item. So maybe green takes one for themselves and says, okay, but I have a good relationship with purple. Instead of giving this to yellow, I'm going to go ahead and give it to purple. So there's a lot of politics involved there. The voting decides who gets to distribute the items, but does not necessarily dictate who gets the items. And they don't have to be given to players that are present at the location. After that vote, you'd move on to the next area and you'd resolve this one. So here, there's another attack if there's 3+, and maybe nobody decides to do anything about it. The attack happens. There are still 3 zombies here after everyone has stopped playing their action cards. When this happens, somebody has to die. The zombie attack automatically results in a death. And you have to choose who's going to die by vote. Now, there can be negotiations involved in this as well, be it vaccines or victory points or later agreements for taking care of zombies or whatever the case you might want it to be. Everybody gets to negotiate on who's going to die. And then simultaneously, everybody will point at whoever they want to vote for in terms of death. And if one player has more votes than another, that player is immediately killed and removed from the game. So they come off of the board, their character is no longer active and cannot be scored at the end of the game, and they'll only be controlling 2 characters for the rest of the game. If there's a tie, whoever's the first player gets the deciding vote. So even though they may not be present at the location, they can still choose who gets eliminated from the board. You're going to resolve this for all of the characters in the game at all of the different points. So you're going to resolve the water tower first, then the church, then the armory, then you'll go to the hospital and the bank, and even in the center. But the center does not have a vote for who dies. That's what this track here is for. So the starting player, green, is currently the target for the zombies in the center area, and they always attack. As long as there's at least 1 zombie there, they're going to attack. You'll see that's why this is the most dangerous area on the board. After you've resolved all the other areas, you're going to come to the crossroads. And this zombie, as long as there's 1 still there, is going to choose to kill green. Well, green's not here, so they're going to move on to the next player. They're going to choose to kill blue. And blue is now the target. Blue gets removed from the board if there's any zombies present there. And they now have 1 less character. After you've done all this, that's basically the end of the round. You're going to go ahead and you're going to pass the start player. And the start player will pass to whoever had their character die last in the round. So they will have the option of acting first. If nobody died, it's simply going to pass clockwise, and that will be how first player moves. Then you're going to go ahead and start the next turn, starting with the water tower, then moving on to movement, then bringing out more zombies. And you'll see we already looked at this card, but later in the game, the zombies are actually going to start to move. So all of the zombies at 4 will move to 3. There's a limitation, a maximum amount of the zombies that can be in an area, but for the most part, the zombies will move from 4 to 3, and you'll have more vaccines and more cards come out. So why don't we look a little bit more of the card deck here. We'll see that some of the cards are worth victory points. Some of them allow you to move zombies from one place to another. Some of them allow you to kill 2 zombies. And some even allow you to kill zombies, but to cause explosions in areas. So, for example, I could use this card. It would allow me to kill 2 zombies in an area that has an explosion area. So, for example, right here, I could kill 2 of these zombies, but I have to put an explosion there. And if there are 3 explosion markers at that area, the water tower will crumble. It will be destroyed, and it gets removed from the board. All of the characters there would die, and there's a new area out there which says that an attack happens if the zombies are greater than the number of players. So that's one way to have a change to the board happen. The other area that can handle explosions is the armory, and with 3 explosions happen there, you actually move all of the characters that are there out to the crossroads. The zombies will stay, but you'll put these little fire markers on the board to represent that area is closed and can no longer be moved to or used. So through this, you're going to try and keep your characters alive by getting the most politically neutral or having people ignore you in politics. To get to the end of the game, have the vaccines for your characters, maybe some food to get some extra points, or some action cards that get you some points. And whoever manages to get the most points by the end of the game, which is turn 4, will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is City of Horror by Repos Games, also distributed by Asmodee. But this is a game in which you are, basically just trying to make yourself well-liked. You're going to try and get around, trying to make yourself as agreeable to as many players as possible, while still being able to stab them in the back. Now, this is not a game that I particularly enjoyed, but I do think that it has a wide audience out there, and there's going to be some people that really like this. The negotiation of it, the way that it doesn't exactly work like other zombie games where not everybody's cooperating, but they do have to cooperate in some aspects in order to survive. Whether or not you're trying to avoid getting voted for in terms of being killed, or you're trying to make friends by splitting up the loot in a way that is beneficial to you, but also appears beneficial to other players. So there's a lot of negotiating going on, a lot of quick thinking, and trying to best make things appear to not be too much in your favor, while at the same time advancing yourself in the game. Aside from that, I didn't really find the zombie theme to be all that impressive to me in this game. It fits, but it doesn't fit in a way that I think any other theme couldn't replace it. So I think that you could do something aside from zombies here. You could make it a government-themed game, and you could do it that way. You could make it a corporate-themed game and do it that way. And I think the zombie game, or the zombie theme, isn't necessarily contributing a lot to the overall experience of the game. One thing I failed to mention during the description of the thing was that each character does have a specific power, and having the right characters may benefit you better than having other characters. For example, there are some characters that can faint and completely ignore being voted for in a time when you're trying to select someone to be killed, but they're also ignored for splitting up the loot. Whereas some other ones are able to completely eliminate some zombies or send zombies to other places in order to, divert an attack from one place to another and hopefully take out someone else. So there's a wide range in what's available in those character options. I'm not sure they're all entirely balanced, but that is something that can be balanced within the game itself. So anyhow, if this sounds interesting to you, and as I said, I do think there's going to be a wide audience for this game because of the negotiation and the interaction involved. If it sounds interesting to you, definitely check out City of Horror from Repost Games.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.